Just 2 days to the Uganda general election, the Uganda Communications Commission ordered all licensed mobile network operators and related service providers in the country to suspend public internet access and outbound data roaming services to one network area countries.
Old now and you're born on January 15th, 1986. This is exactly how President Yoweri Museveni has been in power. And maybe you should be celebrating a birthday or an anniversary.
Yes, welcome back to our channel. And as you know, Uganda is going through her elections. And so many things have been happening, from campaigns, which started in the mid of last year. Bobi Wine has been facing a lot of controversy. Bobi Wine being the one that is the people like, the people want him to be president. But he has been facing a lot of controversies, arrests, and all sorts of injustices in Uganda. But let us watch and enjoy this video and see what's happening in Uganda now.
Told me a month ago when I spoke to him, on the same day he was campaigning in the capital Kampala, he was beaten up, his supporters were tear-gassed. This has been a violent campaign through and through, and that is the backdrop for this election. 2 days ago, the government of Uganda shut down the internet, and the people of Uganda don't have access to the internet as we speak right now, so even getting any voting lines video from Uganda has been difficult, because even the media is having trouble covering this election when they're having to call their reporters on the phone because they can't get any live video from that. The reason the government of Uganda shut down the internet is because they say this is to avoid the spread of misinformation, disinformation, to curb the potential for electoral fraud, and also to avoid any incitement to violence. But this has been criticized by many human rights groups, by the opposition there, as an authoritarian repressive tactic.
Well, and how is this election supposed to be credible?
That is the big question here, and Bobi Wine, the opposition leader, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, as he's officially known, has said that all signs point to President Yoweri Museveni rigging this election. He's been in power since 1986. This is his 40th year in power, and he's running for the 7th term, and he does not expect that this election will be credible, free, and fair because of the extreme violence and the tactics used by President Yoweri Museveni. President Yoweri Museveni's government says that protecting the gains, and they have brought Uganda stability and economic growth, and he looks to continue that. But Bobi Wine told CNN a few days ago that if Yoweri Museveni rigs this election, the people of Uganda must rise up to defend their victory. So in the next few days, we'll get to know if he does win, or it's another continuation of Yoweri Museveni's rule for another 5 years, bringing his rule into 45 years. The man is in his 80s now, and the signs of age are starting to show.
A nationwide internet shutdown just 2 days before voters head to the polls, a move human rights groups say threatens access to information and undermines the transparency of the electoral process. The directive from the Uganda Communications Commission comes amid heightened security measures as Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni seeks to extend his more than 4-decade rule. The shutdown coincides with reports of arrests of opposition supporters and an expanded military presence across the country, a development that rights advocates warn violate freedom of expression, assembly, and the right to participate in public affairs without intimidation.
Effective 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 13th, 2025, just 2 days to the Uganda general election, the Uganda Communications Commission ordered all licensed mobile network operators and related service providers in the country to suspend public internet access and outbound data roaming services to one network area countries. The regulator has blocked access to social media platforms, web browsing, video streaming, personal emails, and messaging apps. The suspension applies to mobile broadband, fiber optic, and satellite internet services, among others, leaving most citizens cut off from online communication. The government has also suspended the sale and registration of new SIM cards. SIM swaps and SIM upgrades will, however, be allowed within existing regulations. Operators have also been instructed to disable mobile virtual private networks on their networks. Uganda Communications Commission Executive Director Nyombi Tembo stated that the move is aimed at safeguarding national security and maintaining public order during the electoral process by mitigating the spread of misinformation and electoral fraud. Several entities were, however, excluded from the directive. Authorized personnel will be allowed to access the internet during the voting period through a secure whitelisted mechanism. These include essential public services such as healthcare, financial services, administrative services, transportation, and aviation control systems. The internet shutdown, which remains in place until further notice, comes amid reports of arrests of opposition supporters and human rights activists in the midst of a heightened military presence across the country. As Uganda prepares to head to the polls, rights activists are raising alarm over the state of the country's general election.
People power. People power. Hi.
At a joint press conference in Nairobi, the Africans for Africa Solidarity Movement accused President Yoweri Museveni's government of systematically suppressing political dissent, saying the vote is taking place under intimidation and coercion. Among those speaking were Kenyan activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who were abducted while attending an opposition rally in Uganda in the year 2025 and held for 38 days without due process. They have since filed a petition against the Ugandan government, arguing their detention reflects a rapidly shrinking democratic space ahead of the polls.
Ideally, elections are supposed to be held in an environment that is conducive to a free, fair, credible, transparent, verifiable, accountable election so that the sovereign will of the people can be exercised. The Electoral Commission, led by Justice Simon Mugenyi Byabakama, has managed the affairs of the Commission in a manner that strongly suggests that he is a puppet of the ruling elite.
The progress of Uganda has been stifled by systematic corruption, has been stifled by suppression of human rights in Uganda, as my colleagues had already said. There is no freedom simply because he has had to do with limits or do with things that will keep him in power for all this time.
Their claims mirror warnings from the United Nations Human Rights Office, which says the election is unfolding in an atmosphere of repression with arrests, harassment and restrictions on civil society. President Museveni, now 81, has ruled Uganda since 1986 and is seeking to extend his time in power in a rematch against opposition leader Bobi Wine. With a predominantly young population watching closely, critics say the coming vote will be a defining test for democracy in the East African nation.
People power. Our power.
Lillian Muli, Citizen TV.
You're old now and you're born on January 15th, 1986. This is exactly how President Yoweri Museveni has been in power. And maybe you should be celebrating a birthday or an anniversary as the elections are going on in Uganda. Museveni is 81 years old and he rose to power in 1986 after leading a 5-year guerrilla war. Basically marched into Kampala and said, "I am the boss now," and he's been the boss ever since. When he started, Uganda was in chaos. His first big wins: he brought stability, crushed the insane inflation rates, and became a global hero for his fight against HIV and AIDS. And he turned Uganda from a failed state into a regional power player. But here is the irony. When he was sworn in, he famously said, and I quote, "The problem of Africa in general and Uganda in particular is not the people, but leaders who want to overstay in power." Fast forward in 2026, and he is currently seeking his 7th term. He is now the 4th long-serving leader in Africa. Now, do you think that he is the stabilizing force that Uganda needs, or he is the same problem that he was warning people about? Let me know in the comments.
On the right of your screen, which is my left, the political parties are lined up there, and NRM has 17. And here is the why. It is because NRM already has 17 members of parliament who are in and opposed. So if it is a marathon run, NRM has already moved in the lead. Will it be caught That's why we're here. So as the results come in, the parties that win seats in parliament, we will populate and continue to populate that particular metric. So please keep your eyes on that metric as we go through the night. But for now, we can confirm that there are already 17 seats that have already been won over the NRM that are very much unopposed.